Hello, my name is Andrew Thake from Mines and Money. Delighted to have with us today Koby Kushner, who's a mining analyst with Red Cloud Securities. Delighted to have you with us, Koby.
Yeah, I'm delighted to be here. So thanks for having me, Andrew. It's my first time here.
Koby, you've recently written a report on direct lithium extraction, what investors should know. But before we dive into that, can you just briefly explain what are the different sources of lithium, hard rock, clays, brines, etc.? Can you just explain as to how they differ?
Sure. Yeah, so hard rock, that's the majority of production. That's mostly in Australia. And that's like your traditional hard rock ore body. The primary mineral that hard rock miners are after is called spodumene. And it's mostly mined in Australia, but there's some other hard rock mines coming online around the world. And then brines, this used to be the dominant type of production, and this is saltwater. So in South America, that's where that's where this kind of the secondary source of lithium, but for a while it was the primary source, and it's in these saltwater lakes in South America. But there's other sources of brines, whether that's the petrobrines in Western Canada, for example, or geothermal brines as well. And then how they get that out is, in South America at least, they use evaporation methods. So they pump out the brine from below, and they put them in these large shallow pools, and they let the sun do its work and then evaporate out the water, and you're left with a higher grade lithium concentrate. And then with the clays, that's something that we haven't seen commercially yet. But I would equate that kind of like a cross between brines and hard rock. So you mine it like a hard rock ore body, an open pit. The ground is of course a lot softer. Sometimes you can get away with just free digging it instead of drilling and blasting. And then the clays also differ as well. I should really be calling them sedimentary sources, but without going too deep into the weeds, those are the three primary sources of lithium.
And what is direct lithium extraction then?
So DLE typically applies to brines, and it's a way of selectively isolating lithium from solution without the need for traditional evaporation methods. And there's several different types of DLE.
And is direct lithium extraction a one-size-fits-all solution?
Definitely not. That's a point that I really try and highlight in my report. There's multiple types of DLE. And one of the key takeaways is that DLE is not a one-size-fits-all solution. Each DLE technology needs to be tailor-made for the specific brine chemistry. Brine chemistries vary, and therefore DLE technologies need to vary as well.
And why have we seen increasing investment into direct lithium extraction technologies and also direct lithium extraction project developers?
Yeah, we're seeing increasing investment really on the back of two things. High lithium prices have incentivized new technology, investments in new technology. And then the other part of this is that we are in a structural lithium chemical deficit. This deficit is expected to magnify. It's incredibly hard to scale up traditional lithium producing operations. And so we'll need new technology, new different sources of lithium to come online if we ever hope to meet that supply gap.
Mm-hmm. I've read your report, and in it you say that grade is not king. Can you just explain why? That sounds counterintuitive.
Sure, and that's, in the mining world, I'll first describe why people in mining believe why grade is king. So it means that you're mining less material, but getting more of the metal out of that material. So it really translates to lower OpEx, better margins. With DLE, it's never that simple. Grade is not king, and that this is something mining investors need to wrap their head around. What arguably matters more is the deliverability of your brine. So you can have the highest grade brine in the world, but if you can't pump that out efficiently from the underground reservoirs or salars, then it's going to eat into your economics. So one example I highlight in the report, it's a hypothetical, but if you have project A that has a certain grade and then great deliverability, and by deliverability, let's just measure that in terms of flow rates per well. And then project B has double the grade, but maybe a sixth of the deliverability in terms of flow rates per well. That means if you want to meet scale, and we'll call scale, 20,000 tons a year of lithium chemical a year. If you want to meet scale, project B, even though they have double the grade, they have to now drill 3 times the number of wells because their deliverability is a sixth of the flow rates of project A. So you have to drill 3 times the number of wells. In Western Canada, it costs anywhere between $2 to $4 million a well, we'll say. So that can absolutely crush your CapEx, even though it's double the grade. And then on the OpEx front, your OpEx would also be higher because now you're operating and permitting 3 times the number of wells. So it hurts you both on the OpEx and the CapEx. And that's why, investors really need to pay attention to deliverability. Will it actually flow to surface is the question that we should be asking first and foremost.
So can direct lithium extraction become a disruptor? And if so, how?
Absolutely. So, I was talking about that 20,000 tons a year chemical production. So that's not a small operation, right? Now, one company I'm looking at, they're looking at scaling that up to 150,000 tons a year. And that's about, give or take, roughly half of Australia's current output. So it's significant. If you want, you can compare this to scaling up a traditional hard rock mine. So now putting on my mining engineer hat, and I'm trying to think, okay, how are we going to, meet this this tremendous lithium supply gap that's already here, and it's expected to magnify. Current operations need to scale up quick. With a hard rock mine, you're generally limited by the geometry of your ore body, right? And then with traditional brines, you're generally limited by your evaporation rates and therefore your how much real estate you have for your pond footprint. So DLE brines don't necessarily have these bottlenecks, right? If you want to scale up production, it could simply be a function of drilling more wells.
So can direct lithium extraction also be ESG friendly?
It can be, for sure. It could arguably be more ESG friendly than what we have with traditional brines. So I'm talking, 3% of the footprint that you can get from a similarly sized operation that doesn't use DLE, whether it's a hard rock mine or whether it's a traditional evaporation pond. So your footprint, you're not building these massive ponds. You're not building this a massive open pit mine, right? You're drilling wells. So and then having a central processing facility that's connected to these wells. So the footprint is a lot smaller. It can potentially be a lot less freshwater intensive as well.
Over the last 2 years, lithium prices have shot up from US 10,000 to US 80,000. Will they come down?
We think eventually they'll come back down, right? Right now, it's very disconnected from the cost curve, and that makes investors quite uncomfortable. But ultimately, what has caused this price increase is a supply shortage. And this shortage is expected to magnify. Supplies are extremely tight. We don't see demand going anywhere. EV adaption, if anything, is just really ramping up right now. And then on the supply side, we haven't actually seen new supply hit the market. As I touched on before, scaling up existing operations is very, very difficult to do. So if there is going to be a price correction, we think that it'll have to be the introduction of significant new supply, which we have yet to see.
Mm-hmm. But will high lithium prices hinder the adoption of electric vehicles?
I don't think so. And there's really two things two things to illustrate my point here. So the first is, can we actually engineer lithium out of dominant EV battery chemistries? And my answer is no, it's not easily engineered out. It seems that lithium is a constant metal used throughout all the dominant chemistries, whether it's NMC or LFP batteries. People talk about vanadium redox flow batteries, very promising technology, great for grid energy storage, but these things are huge. It's not something you put on an EV. Really, lithium, it's the lightest metal, right? It's number 3 on the periodic table, right after hydrogen and helium. It's the lightest metal, and that means that it can carry fantastic energy density. So I can't see us moving away from lithium. And then the other aspect of this is, at the end of the day, even though prices have really shot up, lithium itself is still a very small portion of the cost of an overall EV. We think about how Tesla recently announced that they're slashing prices for some of their cars in China. So, and this is on the back of record high lithium prices. So what does that say? If anything, that says that high lithium prices have not quite hindered the adoption of EVs at this point.
Well, it's an absolutely fantastic report that you've written, Koby. We thoroughly recommend any listeners to go and contact Red Cloud for their copy of the report. And that was Koby Kushner, mining analyst with Red Cloud Securities.
Thank you, Andrew.